Well, good morning, Patriots. My name is Willie Lawson. This is the Morning Report, where we don't apologize, we don't retreat, and we don't wait for permission to speak truth. We go straight into the fight. Today's episode is called Majority Rules, and this is why this is going to be very, very important as midterms are on the horizon. Majority Rules, the real story behind the Obamacare war. Now, the Obamacare war is a great picture of why it's important to have majority. Now. Look, there's been a lot of spin and a lot of legacy media nonsense about this, and a lot of historical whitewashing when it comes to the Affordable Care Act. I'm not here to pat anyone on the back. I'm here to set the record straight so you understand how important majority is, and how the left uses majority, and how Republicans don't. Because the fight over Obamacare wasn't about healthcare. It was a stress test on the entire idea of majority rule. And the left, they passed that test, not because they were right, but because they had the numbers. Today, we're going to walk through the power grab that changed everything. And why? Because if we don't learn from it, we're going to lose this country one congressional seat at a time. Okay, let's go back before Obamacare was even a thought in your inbox or newsfeed. The groundwork was laid decades earlier. After Hillary Clinton's healthcare overhaul crashed and burned in the 90s, dubbed Hillary Care, remember that, right? The Democrats didn't quit. They learned. They built an infrastructure, nonprofits, think tanks, healthcare policy journals, activist training camps, friendly media pipelines. They didn't disappear. They dug in. So by the early 2000s, they were grooming candidates at the local level who could run on a national healthcare reform without sounding like Marxists. They flipped state legislatures. They took back governor's mansions. They positioned themselves to win the federal trifecta. So by 2006, George W. Bush's presidency was dragging. Iraq was unpopular, and the Democrats seized both chambers of Congress. And 2 years later, Barack Obama rides a wave of optimism and vague slogans straight into the Oval Office. The left now controls the House with a 70-seat majority. Now, it is crazy that, Republicans sort of cheer this. We've got a majority now. We've got this mandate, and they have a 4 or 5 seat majority. They had a 70-seat majority in the House. The Senate was bulletproof or filibuster proof because they had 60 seats. And the White House, with the president ready to sign anything they put on his desk. That kind of political dominance is rare in American history. And let me tell you, when the left gets it, they don't waste it on speeches. They act. The Affordable Care Act, or Obamacare, was marketed as health insurance reform. But what it actually is economic restructuring dressed in a lab coat. Here's what it did. It mandated that every American buy health insurance. It slapped new taxes on medical devices and investment income. It expanded Medicaid to unsustainable levels, fully funded by the feds, and at first created 30 plus new bureaucratic offices. So they just got bigger. It's like spilled milk. It just went everywhere. It controls what insurance companies could and could not sell. The story about full-time McDonald's employees at the time would get the ability to go get a checkup every year. That's great when you make it working at McDonald's that every year you can go get checked out, right? That seemed pretty good. That insurance company and McDonald's had to stop offering that particular plan because it didn't raise up to the level of what the Affordable Care Act said it should. So do you know what they got instead? Nothing. Nothing. Because those people, either McDonald's was going to have to pay for their health care, or those people were going to have to pay for their own health care and, and had to buy it on a McDonald's salary, especially in 2010. Anyway, it created an IRS enforcement mechanism to track your coverage. So to make sure that everybody had, bought health insurance, they were going to use the IRS, the nastiest, the meanest collection agency in the world, to make sure that you did. This wasn't about healthcare. Okay. It created subsidies for people up to 400% of the poverty line, paid for by the middle class. So yeah, people even going now. Yeah, I went to the Obamacare website, which crashed early on, but and I got health insurance for $10 a month. Well, who do you think was paying the rest of that? They don't care. They don't care. And let's be clear. This is just phase one. The left viewed the Affordable Care Act as a gateway drug to universal health care. They said it. They meant it, and they still mean it. The more government breaks the system, the more government will be called on to fix it. With more control, with more spending, and less freedom. Okay, let's talk about how it passed. Imagine this. Picture this. It was summer 2009. Conservatives hit the streets. Town halls were packed. The Tea Party protests were booming. I actually got to speak at a couple of Tea Party rallies. Voters were fired up. But the Democrats didn't care. You know why? They didn't need a single Republican vote. Not one. Not one. Because, like I just told you, they had 60 votes in the Senate. Filibuster proof, bulletproof. And they were ready to roll. It was Christmas Eve, 2009. The Senate passes their version of the Affordable Care Act on Christmas Eve. All Americans were home with family. Not one Republican voted yes. Not one. Not one. Then came January 2010. The Massachusetts special election, and a dude named Scott Brown, whom nobody remembers right now, a Republican, wins Ted Kennedy's old Senate seat. Democrats lose their 60th vote. Suddenly, they can't pass a reconciled bill with both chambers. So what do? They jam through the Senate version, unchanged, in the House. So the House, when they get the bill, here's what normally happens. The Senate has a bill, they pass it, they send it to the House looks at it and go, make these changes, and then they send it back and they reconcile the differences, and then the finished bill goes to the president, right? Both houses, both parts, say, yeah, we're good with the reconciled bill. Yeah, we're good with the reconciled bill. We'll send it to the president. But now they can't do that because there'll be a filibuster because of Scott Brown. So the House says, what do you got? There'll be no reconciliation. Whatever the Senate, whatever you guys did, we'll take it. No negotiations, no amendments. So on March 23rd, 2010, President Obama signs the ACA into law. This was not democratic debate. This was legislative brute force. And the left didn't care who they trampled because they had the majority. They had the process, they had the media, and they won. All right, so what happened next? And this is especially for you folks who may be watching, who are maybe you were little kids during this time. So you wonder, so what happened next? So the 2010 midterms come up. The American people revolted. Republicans picked up 63 House seats. They flipped 6 Senate seats. They gained over 675 state legislative seats. The Tea Party was roaring. It was rocking and rolling. But here's the cold truth. Obamacare, the Affordable Care Act, and the Patient Protection Act stayed. Why? Because the Democrats still had the Senate. And President Obama still had the veto pen. So for the next 6 years, Republicans would pass dozens of repeal bills in the House. Over 60 in total. 60. None of them became law. Every repeal was simply symbolic. It was a press release, a fundraising email. You can't govern from one chamber. You can't repeal anything with a president who won't sign your bill. And you can't stop a freight train with a strongly worded letter. And for people who were, especially people who were supposed to be Republicans, who were upset with the Republicans for not doing anything. You know, I used to say on the program all the time, I don't understand what you're upset about. I'm not sure why you're mad at your Congress critter. Nothing they can do. Why? Because Barack Obama's still president. You don't have enough for an override. I mean, there's nothing they can do. You know, every repeal bill was going to be DOA when it got to the Senate. Every single one. But then something amazing happened. Then came the golden moment. 2016. Donald J. Trump comes down the escalator and wins the White House. Republicans hold the House. They control the Senate with 52 seats. It's not, it's not filibuster proof, but they've got the House with 52 seats. They got a slim 2-seat majority. 3 seats, actually, because the president of the Senate was a Republican, therefore tiebreaker. So they had at least 3. Finally, conservatives control all 3 levers: Senate, House, White House. 2017 rolls around. The American Health Care Act passes the House. It's not perfect, but it's the repeal voters were promised. It heads to the Senate. Very excited. It heads to the Senate. This is going to be the repeal and replace. Now, it's crazy that we had to replace it, but that was the mentality of the time. So the American Health Care Act is ready. Passes the House, head to the Senate. And then the usual suspects show their faces. You already know who they are. Because with the exception of one, they're still there. They're Lisa Murkowski, waffling Susan Collins, protecting Medicare expansion. Um, and Rand Paul even called it Obamacare light, and it was. And then John McCain, the man who campaigned. See, this is the insane part, and I know that we should not speak ill of the dead, but we can tell the truth. John McCain campaigned on repeal and replace. He won his Senate seat on repeal and replace. This is super important for you to remember. On July 28th, 2017, at 1:30 a.m., John McCain walks into the Senate chamber and does this.
Senator John McCain, just days removed from his cancer diagnosis, stunning the chamber, turning the thumbs down on the repeal bill. It happened just feet away from Republican leader Mitch McConnell, prompting an audible gasp in the chamber.
7 years of repeal efforts have now essentially gone up in smoke, leaving a frustrated McConnell to explain on the floor.
I and many of my colleagues did as we promised and voted to repeal this failed law. We told our constituents we would vote that way, and when the moment came, most of us did.
Two other Republican senators, Maine's Susan Collins and Alaska's Lisa Murkowski, they joined McCain, crossing party lines to vote against the repeal bill.
Obamacare survives. One vote, one man, one ego. This wasn't policy. This was personal. McCain wanted to spite Trump. Trump had mentioned that McCain wasn't a war hero. He had some offhand comment about that he likes he wants his heroes not captured. Stupid, I know. And the American people paid the price. Let's be clear. Obamacare exists today because Democrats held a majority, and they used it. Obamacare survived because Republicans had no backbone when they had their shot. This isn't just about health care. It's about understanding how power works in Washington. You don't win the war with viral videos. You win it by counting votes. The left does not flinch when they have the gavel. Not at all. They pass legislation. They rewrite rules. They ignore the backlash. And now you see with the big beautiful bill, you see how how Republicans are behaving in the Senate. But they're going to be mad. Really. One more time. You don't win the war with viral videos. You win it by counting votes. One more time. The left does not flinch when they have the gavel. They pass legislation. They rewrite rules. They ignore the backlash. The right, we start talking about decorum and compromise the microsecond we get the majority. And that's why we lose. Power is only meaningful if you use it. It's 2025 now, and the game plan hasn't changed. The Democrats want a national public option for federalized Medicaid expansion, the elimination of employer-sponsored health care, and the reinstatement of the individual mandate. They want taxpayer-funded coverage for illegal immigrants. They're doing that as much as they can in California, and they're not done. Meanwhile, conservatives are still arguing whether repeal is too harsh. Wake up. This isn't about tweaking policy. It's about who gets to control the economy, your family's decisions, and your doctor. We need majorities in both chambers. A president who will sign bold legislation, primary challengers to fake Republicans who campaign right and then vote left. You don't beat socialism by splitting the check. You beat it by flipping the table. All right. We got to get out of here. So here's the bottom line. The fight over Obamacare was never just about insurance. It's about who governs. It's about what happens when one side has the will to rule and the other side wants to negotiate. You can blame Pelosi. You can blame Obama. But the real blame falls on every Republican who asked for our votes and then lost their courage. So from this day forward, let's make our mission to build majorities that actually mean something. Not just in name, but in action. We don't need 60 cowards. We need 51 warriors. We don't need press releases. We don't need results. We don't need more apologies. We need authority and the guts to use it. This has been the Morning Report. My name is Willie Lawson, and please don't let history repeat itself. The left used its majority to change America. We must use ours to save it. So if you like what we're doing, hit the subscribe button here on YouTube and on Rumble and at fightbackmedia.com. Share this episode and let your representative know that we expect results, or we will replace them. Stay sharp, stay strong, and don't ever stop fighting back.